It's just after 6 a.m. on September 16th, 1922. A young couple is walking down a secluded, deeply rutted dirt path known as DeRussey's Lane on the outskirts of New Brunswick, New Jersey. The morning air is cold, damp, and thick with river mist. As they round a sharp bend near a massive, lonely crabapple tree, they notice something white scattered across the grass, moving gently in a breeze. At first, it looks like someone tore up a pile of old confetti after a wedding. But as they step closer, the harmless illusion completely shatters. Resting beneath the low-hanging branches of the tree are the bodies of a man and a woman. They're lying flat on their backs, positioned with absolute, chilling neatness side by side. The man is dressed in formal clerical attire. The woman wears a modest polka-dot dress. What makes the scene truly haunting is the debris. Surrounding their bodies, and carefully arranged over their clothing, are hundreds of tiny, shredded fragments of handwritten paper. When the local county deputies arrive and begin piecing the paper puzzle together on a wooden clipboard, they realize they are looking at highly passionate, intensely private love letters. This wasn't a random, chaotic robbery. This was a calculated execution rooted in deep, consuming rage. The victims are quickly identified as Edward Wheeler Hall, a wealthy, prominent Episcopal priest, and Eleanor Mills, a beautiful singer in his church choir. They were both married to other people. The shredded letters weren't just evidence. They were the motive. Within days of the discovery, the Hall Mills affair exploded into a massive, unprecedented media circus. The case gripped the public imagination because it pulled back the pristine curtain on the absolute highest echelons of East Coast society. Edward Hall wasn't just any local minister. His wife, Frances Stevens Hall, came from one of the wealthiest, most politically powerful institutional dynasties in the entire state of New Jersey. When detectives began probing the timeline of the murders, they immediately hit a massive, invisible wall of high society resistance. Frances Hall, along with her eccentric brothers, Willie and Henry Stevens, claimed they were peacefully asleep inside their massive mansion on the night of the killings, completely oblivious to Edward's late-night movements. But independent journalists and local investigators began uncovering glaring contradictions in the family logs. A local doctor reported seeing a luxury vehicle matching the Stevens family car speeding away from DeRussey's Lane at 11:30 p.m. Yet, before the grand jury could even issue a formal subpoena for the family's financial and travel records, the local political machinery abruptly closed ranks. The initial investigation was quietly, systematically dismantled, and the case file was tucked away into a dark archive drawer, leaving the community to whisper that immense wealth had just bought absolute immunity for a double homicide. For 4 long years, the files gathered dust. The public assumed the truth was permanently buried. But in 1926, a new governor took office, bowing to immense public pressure, and officially reopened the Hall Mills murder file. Frances Hall and her brothers were arrested and put on trial. The prosecution knew they needed a bombshell, an eyewitness who could break the family's high society alibi. And they found her living on a ramshackle farm just a yard from the murder site. Her name was Jane Gibson, but the newspapers immediately gave her a moniker that would live forever in true crime folklore. They called her the Pig Woman. Jane was an eccentric, fiercely independent woman who raised hogs in the valley. On the night of September 14th, 1922, Jane suspected someone was stealing her livestock in the dark. She saddled her gray mule, Jenny, and rode down into the shadows of DeRussey's Lane to investigate. As she neared the gnarled crabapple tree, her mule suddenly reared back in fear. Jane ducked into the high corn stalks, completely silent, and watched a luxury vehicle pull to a stop. Through the midnight fog, she heard a woman's sharp voice scream, "Explain this," followed immediately by a barrage of 4 deafening gunshots that echoed across the valley. Jane panicked, turned her mule around, and raced back to her farm in absolute terror. Her testimony was the missing link, but the defense was about to launch a ruthless psychological campaign to destroy her sanity on the public stage. The trial of the century reached a bizarre, historic climax when Jane Gibson was called to take the witness stand. By 1926, the pig woman was dying of advanced cancer, completely bedridden and too weak to stand. In an unprecedented legal move, the judge ordered a full hospital bed, complete with white metal bars and pillows, to be wheeled directly into the center of the packed, suffocatingly hot courtroom. Under the flashing bulbs of press cameras and the stares of Manhattan's elite, Jane lay under a heavy white blanket, a private doctor standing by her side with a stethoscope. The defense attorney stepped forward, aggressively accusing her of being a liar, a fabulist, and a dynamic storyteller who had invented the entire narrative for media attention. But Jane refused to break. She looked directly at Frances Hall and her wealthy brothers, raised a frail, trembling hand from the bedsheets, pointed her finger across the room, and barked into the microphone. "I am telling the absolute truth. I saw those people. I heard those screams." Her mother, who sat in the front row of the gallery, suddenly stood up and publicly called her own daughter a liar, turning the legal proceeding into a chaotic, tragic family psychodrama. Despite the explosive, unforgettable drama of the pig woman's hospital bed testimony, the unbendable math of reasonable doubt won the day. The jury, deeply conflicted by the compromised crime scene and the absolute power of the Stevens family's legal team, returned a verdict of not guilty for all defendants. Frances Hall and her brothers walked out of the courthouse as free citizens, returning to their mansion behind a wall of permanent silence. No one was ever convicted of the Hall Mills murders. The gnarled crabapple tree under Russey's Lane was completely destroyed over the years by souvenir hunters who hacked away at its bark and branches, looking for a physical piece of the mystery. Because this grand jury investigation played out over a century ago, the physical evidence, the shredded love letters, and the original players have all dissolved into the public domain, leaving behind one of the most haunting, unyielding double homicides in the annals of American crime history. The case stands as a permanent reminder that sometimes the absolute truth cannot survive the crushing weight of high society influence and institutional paralysis. The letters remain shredded, the voices have fallen silent, but the echo of those late-night screams beneath the branches continues to whisper through history. I want to know what you guys think about the pig woman's incredible courtroom appearance. Do you believe her midnight ride on the mule was absolute truth? Or did the defense successfully expose a small-town fabrication? Let's start a meaningful, constructive conversation down in the comments below. And please, keep the discussion deeply respectful of the history. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, look out for one another, and I'll see you in the next deep dive. Bye.